Hey crafters, it's me Jen Evers with Quality Crafts, and welcome to another Funday Sunday. We're going to focus on slimline cards today. So if you've been hearing a lot about slimline cards and you're not sure about what the measurements should be or how you should go about creating one, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks today and some measurements that will help you get started in making slimline cards for yourself if that's something that you want to do. I'm going to pull out my envelope. Let's see if I can find it in this pile. I have a business envelope, and they may not all be, I can't find it right now, they may not all be the same size. So make sure that you are checking the size of your business envelopes. I'm guessing that maybe standard size business envelopes, both of these should work just fine in them. But just in case, measure your own, make sure that these two sizes are going to work for you. You can also make them, skinnier or whatever, make them skinnier and then add on things that are a little bit wider on top to create all kinds of different cool looks using this kind of card setup. So it's totally up to you. This can be a really fun way to make cards. For me, it's a way of thinking more creatively outside the box and coming up with new ideas I may not have thought of before. Mainly because the structure of the card is you either have a really wide space to create and, put new things and stuff on, or so a lot of people are doing them upright like this. Then you've got your place for all of your whatevers and your sentiments. I mean, there's just, the canvas is so much wider or taller than we're used to. It's going to force you to think of different things and think outside the box. Good afternoon, Jamie. Thanks for joining me. So I'm going to start out with two different sizes. They're going to be the same exact sizes that these two cards are. So the smaller one is going to be cut at 8.5 by 7. That's this one. 8.5 by 7. And then this larger one is cut 9 by 8. I'm going to start out with the smaller of the two. They both fit in the envelope just fine. It just depends on how much width you feel like you need to make yours work. So I'm going to go the long way this way. That means that I need to cut the short side in half. So the short side on this one is 7, so we're going to score at 3.5. So 3.5 to get our center line so we can fold our card. I'm using the smaller score board, so I'm just going to go ahead and flip mine over so I can continue that line. Make sure that I am on 3.5. I feel like I'm hopping. Yeah, I'm hopping tracks. Let's see if we can make that work. I'm going to go ahead and match that corner and make sure that even if I did hop that corner, that they're still going to meet up. And if they don't, I'm just going to cut off the extra. A lot of times, no matter how you cut your paper, you're going to have a corner that looks kind of like that. Just cut one little piece or sliver off, and nobody will be any of the wiser. Because it's such a small, minuscule piece, it's not going to change what the shape of the card looks like, and nobody's going to really notice. So here's for this one. I'm going to show you how to put together this card. Last time I did a panel and I glued it straight on. Hi Sandra, thanks for joining me. You can do it straight on to the top of this. I think that's what I'm going to do this time. Instead of having a white border, I'm just going to go right ahead, and there was a bump there that was bugging me. I'm going to cut that off as well. I'm going to start out with doing this really cool mix of colors. I used oxides for that. Cracked pistachio, seedless preserves, and blueprint sketch were what I used. I'm going to go ahead and start off with the lighter one. And I went in this order. And I think I'm going to use this brush today. It might come out a little bit dingy because I just used this on brown, but hopefully the more I do it, you probably won't even notice it. When I'm done with a color, when I'm doing this, I wipe it off on a piece of paper until it's not showing color anymore. But I was in kind of a hurry because I just used this for another video. So you can make this transition big or as small as you want. I'm going to start out with this. I might come back to this color. You just kind of go back and forth until you get it the way you like it. Debbie Tramudanis. Tramudanis. Am I close? Tramudanis? Welcome. Hi. Okay. Now when I get done, I'm going to use my wet wipes. Maybe not every single time, but just to show you, it picks up that green. That is how I got these flowers to match. So we'll get to that eventually, but I thought I might mention it. I'm not going to go back and wipe in all the wet, so the back of my card might get kind of grungy looking. I'm not going to worry about that right now. If you're worried about that kind of thing, go ahead and put down something, you know, underneath it. I'm kind of rubbing that seedless preserve right into the end here. Just kind of creating a little bit of a movement or a kind of a blend. It doesn't blend perfectly, obviously, but that's not going to really be too much of a worry for us. It's going to look cool at the end regardless. And now I'm going into an even darker color, so even though I don't have this perfectly cleaned off, it's going to be okay. And I'm adding Blueprint Sketch heavily on this side, and then I'm going to start moving it into the seedless preserves. Honestly, this can take you as long or as short as you want it to. These two colors blend really nicely, so I don't think I'm going to have too much of a problem here. But I do want to go back in a little bit with my cracked pistachio, maybe blend this end a little bit. Sandra, we still have some of these brushes left, so if you want one, let me know. I'll put it in your bin. This one I want to make sure that I am wiping this enough so that, because I'm going into a much lighter color, I don't want a lot of that dark color to get in on that. I would recommend getting two of these brushes, one for lights and one for darks. But as you can see, it's doable with one if you do the cleaning. So now this is going to blend in. It's going to kind of, you know, go together. Because one of the things with this is that you can put a lighter color if you're working with oxides over the top of a darker color. And that's why you're going to get that seemingly blend, because what's happening is this ink is going on top of that one. So check that out. It looks pretty cool, right? Another thing that you can do after you've maybe rubbed on this a little bit and it's not totally coming off, grab yourself a wet wipe. And I usually just kind of go back and forth like this. But don't get too crazy about it. You want to let that dry then in between. So I'm just going to stick it back in its holder and let it be. I've got a couple of the colors from my card on here already. If you're working with things and you keep these, hi Miyuki. Cool. Yeah. So if you're working with these colors and stuff, you're going to end up starting to get those colors all over your wet wipe. And then that's what you use for your flowers in the end. There's not a whole lot of that color on there, and I really want this to show up today. So I'm going to go ahead and just do some drag art with these. Get some of those colors on there. I got my fingerprints, but you won't notice that later. And maybe just a little bit more of that green. And then all you have to do is just let these sit and dry. And obviously, if you're working and you're not really paying attention to what you're doing, you really won't have to go over the colors like this. But I really want this to show up for you guys, so I'm going to make sure that I get all the colors on there that I want. I feel like there's not enough blue, so I'm going to put in a little bit of blue here and there. Cool. That's going to work for our flowers, so I'm just going to hang that over here, and I'm going to leave it there. Taking a new one here. Pick up all the junk that I created. Okay. Are you guys having a great Sunday? What are you guys doing today besides hanging out with me? I'm really glad you're here. Hey! Hi, Donna. So we're recreating this card, and we just got done doing the bottom. I won't have the white around it because I'm just going direct onto the card today. You can also do the drippy thing where you get some more interesting looking fun splashes and stuff, but I'm not going to do that on mine today. I'm going to put these away here. So, all I did to make the accents and the sentiment, obviously, was just use a little bit of white embossing powder. So I'm going to get out my Versamark clear ink pad. There's one. That'll work. And I used a Tim Holtz stamp for those really cute curly cues. And I'm not going to try to exactly recreate that because all I did was just grab a couple and put them on there. And then I just grabbed a sentiment stamp, which we'll do in just a second. I do sell these. They're $9.99 a piece. And I have a couple left, and I can reorder if you need some. So here I'm just going to be like, okay, I want one there. This one's really cool. I'm going to put one there. See, it's not going to look exactly the same, and that's okay. I think I might just throw one right in here. Yeah, that's going to look really cool. Okay, I need a large block. I have an even bigger block, but it's got some marks in it. But we're going to use that one. Alright, so that's basically where I want it to be. It'll be close. It might not be perfect, but that doesn't matter. Make sure to add a lot of this ink, just so that you don't have to go over it twice. I'm not using a stamping helper, so I want to make sure I get this done down the right first time. And I'm going to put it right there. Okay, you should be able to see that in the light where that wet ink is. And then we're going to hold it over the top of the embossing. Uh-oh, I forgot to wait for the ink to dry. Here's what I'm going to do with that because I forgot. I'm going to go over this really lightly and get some of that off of there, but I'm not going to be like super careful, just to brush off some of that stuff that's stuck where I don't want it. That's it, and I'm going to leave it that way. I'm going to leave it so it looks kind of grungy and be okay with that. Because it's going to be just as beautiful whether I waited for that to dry or not. So let's go ahead and heat set this. Are you guys hearing me okay? Hi, Penny. Alright, got a little bit of warping, so I'm just going to straighten it out. And the warping is the reason why I did it this way the first time, but for the sake of the video, we're okay with this. I can always just cut this off and then put it on top of another card, just cut off a slight bit around it. But look at that, it's super cool. I actually really like the extra texture in there. That's really pretty. I sound like I'm in a funnel. I'm going to switch to the other one, but the other one is really, really bad. I just made a couple videos today and realized after I was done with them all how bad it sounds. Does that sound any better? I bet now it's going to be super loud. Let me turn it down a bit. How's that? I'm hoping that that's a little better. Okay, so I'm going to have to add a sentiment here, or we could add one later, whatever. I'm going to let that dry so we can add a sentiment later. Pop that up there. Let's go ahead and start with the other one. This one I actually did two bases. I did a red one, and I didn't have red paper to match this. What I did was I cut that extra smaller or larger base there with the red, and all I did was color the edges of it with the same color that I used for these flowers. So that's how I did that. And the stuff, it's not too loud. Okay, I can always turn it up if it's not loud enough. The top paper is watercolor paper, so I'm going to have to pull down one of my watercolor sheets. And I'm going to remeasure this so that I can cut it the right way. Three and a half by 8.5. Okay, 3.5 by 8.5. This is all my scrap paper in the way. And for this one, I used Recollections, and I don't know the name of it. This one I do not sell. I looked it up. It's because it's a Michaels. I think it's a Michaels brand. We can't get it. Alright, that one's up there drying. So all I did was just take a couple of these rose stamps, and then I decided where I wanted to put them. So I'll try to kind of recreate this one. This long one here. And I did these one at a time, but I think I'll just try to do them all together this time with my big stamp. So I popped one there, and then I went this one. Put that one coming in from the corner. Let's move that one up a bit. And then I put a little one over here. That's this one. Popping up right here. Whoops. Wrong way. And that's it. That looks good. Get out that large stamp, black stamp. Wow, I didn't even think to see where these were going to go again. There we go. It'll put on there exactly where they go. You might want to trace those with a permanent marker if you get a set like that. Alright, reseat that guy. This guy needs to go up a bit. That looks good. Alright, down we go. And I just inked this in black. So I'm just going to go ahead and ink it in black this time. If you are worried about your watercolor or whatever getting outside, then I recommend embossing it so it makes that little layer so your colors don't like go outside of it. But I'm not watercoloring today, although that would be a lot faster. I may maybe color one and watercolor the rest. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. See how time goes. So all I did was just stamp these in black. So that's what I'm going to do today. If you guys like to Zoom and you haven't joined us yet on one of the Zooms, there's one happening after this video today. Just join our Facebook group by following the link in the description box below, and that will tell you where you can find us. Nope. I wiggled that a little bit. Too much. That's okay. We're going to move on with it. If you're working on something that maybe isn't quite as extensive as this, or all, you know, teeny tiny lines, you could go in with another little black marker that's got a smaller profile tip and go in and go over all those, blacken those lines. Do you see where I'm going with this? I'm not going to do that to the whole thing. That would take me a long time. But if you needed to, you could. I think after we get this colored, we won't notice that as much. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some reds. And I'm using Tombow markers this time. A light. Actually, I'm not sure I really like that brownish one. Let's switch that one out. So a lighter one, that's kind of the orangey one, and then a darker one, and then the darkest one. Yeah, I think that'll work. Let's try that combo. I don't always use the same combos. You just, you know, play around with your markers. And it's probably best that you don't always use the same color, only because, or the same colors over and over, because then you run out of that color of ink and you have to buy that marker. But I start out by putting the lightest color down first. Okay, and just going around the bottoms. And you have to do each petal or however you want to do it. If you watercolor it, it's a lot easier. Then I have that little bit more of a pinkish color. I'm going to blend that one out with the orange through the middle. And you can tell I'm not being like super intensive about where the colors are. And then at the very top, I'm going to put that deep red. And then if the petals are going the opposite way, like these ones that flip up, then I'm going to start with the dark on the bottom. So what you want to do is you want to go back over it, you know, mix them together. Go up with your medium color and blend that into the red. And that's just how I do mine. You get a little bit of a blend. Okay, so now like I said, these ones on the bottom, we'll start with the lighter color on the top of the flower, because these petals are kind of coming up from the bottom. That makes sense. This one will be that way. Then add in that a little bit of pink. And some professional colorists would probably tell you this is a really bad way to do it. You have to find a system that works for you. If you find somebody who does classes and you love the way they color, then copy that. I didn't ever take classes. I just kind of self-taught by watching how other people do it and then testing it out on my own and seeing what works for me. So this is where it comes in. If you're tricky about staying in the lines, just go ahead and oops, I went back to the wrong color. Go ahead and emboss your lines. That'll help a lot. It'll help you stay in there. And you can also use these markers with water too, to make it more of a watercolor look instead of just blending it with the marker. So now I've got some blended the opposite way. And I'm going to go ahead and finish up some of these. Just finish up this flower and then we'll move on. Because I don't really want this to be like a huge coloring video. However, if coloring is something that you want me to cover, I can show you how I color. I do have a couple of other coloring videos, but off the top of my head I can't remember exactly what they were called. But you can look into those. You can go into my YouTube and search for coloring videos. I'm not sure if I have a playlist on that. I probably should. I'm just coloring these all dark up here. They probably should be light because they're up on the top, but I'm just going to color them in for right now. So that's pretty cool. You could watercolor the rest probably super quickly by using a water brush and these markers. If you don't have these markers, then go ahead and use any kind of water-based markers you have. Or any kind of inks that you want. Okay. So we're going to go over this with all the light. Then we're going to go in with a little bit of the darker pink. Now we're going to let that seep in there. If you don't air dry it, if you just use your cloth and dab it up, then your color is going to disappear. So that's why I'm using that. Then I'm going in with the darkest. I'm going to put some of that on the bottom. And this is super quick, super fast watercoloring, using kind of the same technique as I used before. Just adding in some of that dark color. Just because that way we won't be sitting here this whole time watching me color all the flowers. So we get some really cute kind of blending in there too when we do it watercolor wise. Same colors, different outcome, right? Because we've added a lot of water to it and diluted that color. But they're still the same color. Still the same color we were using. We'll go ahead and do this one. I used the darkest color for this one. I'm just going to do the whole darn flower. And then I'm going to go in with, is this my darkest one? No. No, but I'm going to use this one because it's closer to that color. And I'm going to add in some darkened little highlights with my marker. So I used the watercolor trick, I guess you could call it, to add in that whole bottom layer of just the light color so that I could just add some extra highlights here. And then let's see what happens if we add that lighter color over the top. Get a little bit more blending. That's pretty too. So cool. A couple of different techniques and stuff that you can use for coloring. You can use your inks for that. You can use water-based markers for that. Do not try alcohol markers. Use your water-based. Even Crayola works. Crayola works just fine. Just know that you're going to get... Just be aware that the brighter colors are going to be toned down by doing that. This is another place, if you use ink on there, that you can put onto your wet wipes to get a different color. And so now I'm going to go ahead and do the stems. The stems, I'm going to use two different colors, a lighter one and a darker one. They're not very far apart, so it's going to be a very subtle blend. I go straight down the stem with my light color, and then I'm going to go down one side of the stem with my darker color. You could even go a darker than this. This might be harder for you guys to notice, but it looks really pretty. And then if you've got stamps that'll add leaves and things, that is super fun too. And then add a sentiment. I believe I still have that Thinking of You one pretty handy. You know what? I bet we could get away with a Merry Christmas here, just since they're kind of reddish flowers. I haven't really made any Merry Christmas stamps. Let's just go with this one. There we go. And I'm just going to stamp this in black. VersaFine Onyx Black ink. If I get it right the first time, I'm going to put this one more towards the top middle. Voila! Et voila! Alright, now you're saying to yourself probably, but how did you get the yellow and the blues and stuff in there? That's all watercolor work too, except for the sparkle. Do you see that really grandiose sparkle? It's amazing. That came from Stickles. And I used Twinkle Stickles. That's how that bright, brilliant sparkle came about. We add that at the very end on the parts where we want. And I'll show you a little bit of the water technique that I used for that. And I used blue before. I wonder, since it's Christmas, if we don't might want to stick with some greens. I think that'd be pretty. Let's stick with some of these. Maybe one more darker green. That's that's a darker one. And I'm just randomly pulling these out. Thanks, Donna. So, let's go ahead and start out with the lighter green. Usually I go up and around the flowers and stuff, but I kind of don't want the green being all over the flowers. So I'm going to add in here kind of like a rough draw in of like a border, sort of. And then a little bit of this water, which still looks really red. And then just go over the top of this and go out, keep going out until I can't really see the green anymore. And that way that's going to make a real subtle change, but it won't be like all on top of the flower. So I'm going to do a light one. I'm going to do it lightly with this green, maybe a little bit less down here because it's such a small space. And then I'll go in over the top of this, and I'll do a little bit darker of a green so it looks more like a Christmas green. You see how nice these tombos just kind of spread out? I mean, I got onto that right away, and you almost can't even see the lines anymore. That's the whole purpose, right? You don't want to see those gaudy lines. And the more water you add and the more you draw away from it, the more, less of a line you're going to see. And then you have to decide, you know, how close to that Merry Christmas and stuff do you want to go. The more you draw it out, the lighter that green is going to get, but you want to make sure that your halo is maybe not going to cover that up, if that makes sense. I'm working kind of fast, so just ask me if you have any questions. I'm kind of trying to just pinpoint the high points, the kind of what I feel is the most important thing to know about it. Again, this works for me. This is what I like, how I like to do it. You might do it completely different. You might have learned it different, or maybe this is your first time doing some watercoloring kind of things, and you're thinking, this might work for you. You know, whatever works for you, that's the biggest point. It doesn't have to work for anybody else. And I'm creating kind of a round halo around the Christmas. You'll notice that as I bring in the green in. You see that halo starting to take effect there. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a darker green around the edge, and I think I'm going to call it good. I'm not going to do a whole bunch. Let's just throw in some of this green. Another fun thing you can do is dotting. If you're just not sure, you just want to add some color, throw in a couple of dots. And then go over them and mix them in. If you get on them right away, most of the dots will fade out and you won't see them as much. If you want the dots to stay, you can just add more. But I think that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and just add a little bit of green in here. Now I'm just adding a little tiny bits. I don't want this to be like super into the whole picture. I just want it kind of on the edge. So we're going to leave most of that lighter green, which is almost taking on the color of a yellow, to just be our base color. So throwing in that darker green is kind of giving it more of a Christmassy feel, at least for me. And now you can see why I used watercolor paper for this part. Because I am practically pilling this part up because I'm using so much water and so much friction. I'm just going to do those next couple of parts. Oops. Wrong cap, Jen. Wrong cap. So fun, right? It's cute. I like it. So that's going to go on top of a card base. Just like that. And I might do the green background or the red background on this one too. Did I already make that one? I don't think I did. Let's go ahead and score this one. So this one is 9 by 8. So we're taking it on the 8-inch and we're going to fold it down 4. That's halfway. Hi, Beth. Okay. So to get that faux red, I might even do this since this is kind of a watercolory one. And do you notice that now that I have that colored in, do you really notice that my stamping was that bad? Not really, because it's not a perfect card, it's a handmade card. I doubt anyone would ever say anything to me if I gave them this beautiful card. Usually what I do is I cut a base just larger than this, and I use my marker to color the edge. That's a good way to create the illusion that you have that color paper. But this time I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and put this straight down on here and do my other favorite trick, which is to go around the edge with just a marker, a red marker. So now to find, I should have left my red markers out. Which one was the reddest marker? I think it might have been this one. Where's my scrap paper? Oh no, that one's way too dark. I'm glad I didn't go with that. How about this one? I think I'm missing one shade in between. Oh, I like that one. Let's go with that one if we can't find the other one. Might be this one. Clumsy fingers. Oh yes. Okay, this is the one I want. The dark, Christmassy red. We'll just bump these off to the side. So because everything else is like not pristine perfect, I'm going to make sure that my lines are not pristine perfect. I'm going to start out with a line, and then I'm going to kind of push, like put pressure on and then take pressure off. It's kind of like going up and down to give me this off line. So if you want it to be straight, you can make it really straight. I just bumped the back of my card. But I think for this one I'm going to give it some more bumps. That looks good. Pretty. Look at that. Looks almost like I put torn paper underneath it, doesn't it? I really, really like that one. Okay. So we have recreated this one in a slightly different style. We could add some stickles to this one. I'm not going to right now, but give me your opinions of whether you think that the stickles are good or not. So here is the one that has the stickles on it, the blue, and this one has no stickles. So your opinion on the new card that we just made, stickles or no stickles? I like these almost as much as I like my Copic markers. Okay, back to this one. Hopefully it's had a chance to dry some. Love the stickles. We should shoot some stickles on there before we go. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put away this stamp set. Get this one out of the way because we're done with it. I'm going to pop these on the plastic because I can't tell where they go if I don't. Thanks, Jamie. That did not go on straight. Let's fix that. Okay. Again, let me remind you that even if you've never joined in a Zoom with us before, we would love to have you. We're going to have a Zoom. We call it a Zoom crop or a Zoom party. You're welcome to join anytime you see that in the group where it says, hey, we're having a Zoom party from this time to this time. If there's question marks, that means I don't know when I'm going to end. It could possibly be a late night. If it says, you know, from 3 to 6, then we'll be ending at 6. Today I haven't decided, so I don't know. Oh, one of my glue things leaked, which has never happened before. I had a puddle of glue over there. Alright. Recreating this one. Here's the one that we've had sitting on the side here. Very similar, isn't it? Except for we moved a little bit of these in a different spot. So let's pull out our baby wipe that's been drying that has all the colors for our flower in there. Thank you, Donna. And we're going to finish heating this up, just drying it up. That's basically it. We're just going to finish drying it up. Mostly because, I mean, you could use it damp like this. It's not very wet at all. But you want the glue to stick. So if it's dry, and most of the time we have these just laying around and they're all dried up all over the place anyway, right? So if you've got one that's got, you know, rainbow colors on it or whatever, save it. Add it to your projects. If you hadn't known that was a baby wipe on those flowers, what would have been your first guess what I made those flowers out of? I'd love to hear from you. If I didn't tell you that those were baby wipes, I should have asked in the beginning before I told you. But some of you guys already knew. If you follow me in the Zooms and stuff, you're going to know a lot more than the average Joe about quality crafts and about me in general. I am going to go ahead and, do I want 4 or do I want 6? I'm going to fold this together like that. And here's the trick to making those flowers. It's so simple. Just cut it into a circle. And you say, oh, I can't cut a circle. The crazier an oblong your circle looks, the cooler your flower will look. You can even make the edges all curly and wonky if you wanted to, and it will add to the cool look of your flower. So don't worry if you think you can't make the perfect circle. That's not important. Okay. Now I have enough here to make 6, so I'm just going to show you real quick how to make these. Can't remember if I used wet glue last time or not. I think I did, so I'll pull out the wet glue. Go ahead and just cut it in a circle all the way around. If your hands are dry like mine, they're going to stick like crazy to this stuff. I should have put on some lotion before I started. just keep cutting it in a circle until you get to the bottom. You know, get yourself a little base like this, and that's where you're going to want to put your glue. I don't know how well this wet glue is going to work. Because what we're going to do now is we're just going to roll it up. Go all the way to the end. Try your best to get that little piece in there. I'm doing it with my fingers this time. I typically use a tweezers to help me hold it together. But I'm just going to try to do it this way on purpose in case you don't have that tool. These are pretty small, so trying to get them together is not going to be as hard. And then where you put that glue is where you want to put it right on the bottom so that all those pieces stick together. Now, maybe you want to use a glue dot or something that's going to keep it together. If you make these out of paper, when you let go of that, see, it's sticking all over me. But if you make these out of paper and you let go, that's going to go, and it's going to unravel. You want it to have that looser of a look. So since you have the ability to kind of move this stuff around, that's what you want to do in the end or while you're creating it. So I'm pulling out a couple of layers that I want to be a little bigger, and I'm kind of flattening it a little bit. Okay. And then I'm going to try to get that glue part to stay right there. Now, you kind of have to play around with it. This is not something that comes super easy. Didn't come super easy to me either. Get out some of this stuff and play around with it, and then just kind of decide where do you want to put it. This looks good to me. I'm going to try to use this wet glue to the best of my ability. It should dry and hold that guy there. If it doesn't, you can always go back in, use stronger glue dots and things like that. That will hold these. So there's one of my flowers. You could put stickles on the flowers too. Now, if you want really tight coiled, then you're going to want to go really, really close. Really, really tiny. I don't want to do that. I want mine to be kind of big. So that's why my walls, my petals are wider. So I'm going to show you this one more time. We are getting to the end. It's almost 3, but I want to finish doing this one for you. Okay. This time while I'm, where's my tweezer? This time I'm going to kind of try to show you if you want the center to be really tight, use your tweezer to get it started. You can use the tweezer for the whole darn thing, but I'm just going to use that to get this started. And then I'm going to start making my flower petals around it a little bit looser so I can spread it out. It's definitely not a super quick process, and you're going to want to play around with it to get your center the way you want it. Okay. I think I got it kind of the way I want it, so I'm going to add a little bit of glue to the bottom. I'm going to glue it right there. Not bad. Bend mine up just a little bit because I want to see that middle. Ooh, there it is. There it is. See the center? I would let these sit and dry so they don't just automatically fall off. I would hope they'd stay. I'm just going to leave my scissors on it. So I've got a pile for next time, or I can add more flowers. These can also be the leaves if you did one that was green, but I didn't have one that I liked, so mine are just paper flowers. So to do a paper flower, and I'm going to pop these out here because we're almost done with this video, but I'm going to show you if you don't have that color, get yourself some paper, clog up my glue so I don't lose half of it on the counter. It's getting harder and harder for me to see that glue bottle to get that pin in there. Markers or inks, spray inks work really well if you have a lot of things that you've sprayed. Right now I'm just going to use this as an example. Probably not the best because this is like super wet ink. You don't want that to dry. My go-to color for making leaves is usually an olive, but because I used cracked pistachio on this, I want the leaves to match. So that's why I picked cracked pistachio. And then you just simply cut out like an eyeball leaf shape, whatever size that you think you want. And the difference in this versus the ones that I have, I added some water to make it more two-toned. And so if you spray them, that'll happen. And then either fold them in half, hold on to the end and fold them in half so you have a place to glue it so that they stick up like a leaf would. I'll show you that. Do you see that? So you can see the dimension. Or take the leaf itself and just crumble the whole thing up. And the reason for that is going to give you a lot more texture. It's not just going to look like a flat piece of paper sitting on your card. It's going to look like some kind of a little leaf. Do you see how it's all crumpled? It just looks really cute like that. If you've got some spray sparkle, I would recommend spraying the sparkle on the flowers. I think that would be really pretty. So there you have it. Lots of techniques jammed into this one video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that maybe you learned something. Leave me a comment down below if you did learn something or if you found something new or if you have a nice, really cool tip, trick, or hack that we could share in other videos and stuff. I would love to hear from you. Go ahead and leave a comment. Give us a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already so that you can see all the new stuff that we're coming out with every Sunday Funday. And don't forget, on Wednesdays I do a 1 in 10 by Jen, which is scraps sent in by subscribers. I make a card in just 10 minutes, and then I send it to that subscriber. So you get a handmade card by me, and it's fun to watch me try to get all that done in 10 minutes. So I hope that you guys will enjoy, will join me for that and enjoy that video series as well. So until then, thumbs up, subscribe, hit that bell notification. We are working on quality crafts again. Some new information is coming out soon. And check the group in Facebook for all the stuff that is coming up. That is our hub where everything quality crafts is. Drama free, commitment free. Come on and join us, and I cannot wait to see you guys next video.